Freddy, Jason, Michael, Chucky, and of course some lesser known names, Jerry Dandridge or Irving Wallace. What do they all have in common? They're all slashers, yes, but what else? Well, they all left the final girl behind. The final girl has a special place in horror movies. She is the last one alive, and she's the one that kills the killer. And she's usually the first one killed in the sequel, if there is a sequel. But what about those final girls that survived the sequel, maybe even the threequel? Well, they need a support group to recover. And what happens when these monsters come back for a reboot? That's where this book comes in. Why do we love the final girl? What about them is so important? Why is the final girl so common that we made it into a horror movie trope in the 80s and the 90s? It's more than just a random thing. No, there's more to it than that. Final girls are the girls that transgress and take on the traditional male prerogative of the hunter and the killer and the defender of all that is right. She is the one that stays pure and is finally allowed to express the pent-up aggression through physical violence. It cannot be ignored that the usual way of killing the usually male killer is a blade of some sort, usually the larger the better. There is a definite phallic symbolism there. But is that all there is? Because if it were, I doubt it would have worked so often. No, I think there's something more to it else at work that is under the surface. There is more to this than we might think. I think it's less about a woman using a phallic symbol and more about our cultural repression of women. Ever since movies began, audiences have been treated to the damsel in distress. Tie her to the train tracks, tie her to the chair, dangle her off a ledge, tied up of course. Always make sure bondage is part of this, whether it's needed or not. We can't really ignore that there is a certain bondage aspect to this. But as the 80s started to dawn, I'm discussing the true 80s here, that started right around 1983, we couldn't quite get away with that. We had the cultural revolutions of the 70s that allowed women to start to creep away from those traditional woman in peril roles, and so we couldn't quite go back to just that. So what do? Simple solution. Hand them a machete and let them turn the tables on the stalker. But make sure they get a lot of screen time as damsels in distress first. That way the culture gets to have its cake and eat it too. And since the final girl is always the chaste and pure one, they'd probably make the cake for us to eat and wash the dishes after we're done. How does this tie into the book? Maybe not a lot, maybe more than you might think. Because final girls are also resourceful and resilient. And when those monsters come back to haunt our group, one flees and then fights back. And all the while, she has to worry about the men around her. Because remember, women would rather be alone with a bear than be alone with a man. For the most part, at least. Because us men have a very definite track record. We have to grapple with that record at some point. But again, how does this apply to the book? It's what this book is really about. It isn't about movies or slashers. It's about the trope says about final girls and about society in general. And it seems to say three things simultaneously. One, that we want to put women in danger and see them squirm. Two, it says we want to see those women get out of danger and take charge. Three, it says that only women that remain pure in some way are allowed that growth. Because if they can stay pure, they can be put in danger and escape and then be put in danger again in the next movie. I'd say that this book is a great October read. More slasher than horror, but still good for fun. And good for the brain to think about the things it touches upon. So as you read it, think about it. Think deeply. Because it and the slashers it references have more to say under the surface than you may think.